So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. And Roman, you'll note that I have now turned on my mic. Now you can hear me. Scott Smith, City Planner, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just wait till the presentation comes up. So I'd like to present to you the draft planning budget for your consideration and information to the public. So in the planning department, we essentially have three main areas that we cover. Of course, planning, building inspection, bylaw, enforcement are the three main parts. As Finance Department indicated in their presentation, they are now looking after the administration of business license, but planning, building, and fire are still involved in the approval process to ensure that those businesses meet building code and fire code, as well as your zoning bylaw provisions. This department has 4 staff in it, including myself, planning technician, 1 building inspector, and 1 bylaw enforcement officer. Council does see a fair bit of what we do in the planning side of things, as all the development applications that come before you. A significant part of what we do also though is to provide information to developers, real estate agents, and the general public about rules and regulations, building code, those types of things. Also, I am the city's approving officer for subdivisions that I report out to you in the monthly report when they occur. And also we have a significant role in updating our land database and our Tempest software system. So those are some of the main functions that the department is involved with. I usually like to have a couple charts for council to see. This one is just kind of tracking the number of and type of development applications that we've had over the last number of years. 2012 to 2015 were pretty similar numbers and had been lower than some previous busy years that we've had. 2015 did see an increase in the number of applications, mainly around amendments to our zoning bylaw for development projects. In addition, this just gives you a bit of an idea of our building permit values and the type of building permit that we have. We've had a pretty similar number of single-family houses over the last 4 years, and also many of our other permits have been also pretty similar. We did have an increase in commercial in 2015. And although it was a mixed-use building, that was due to the Uchuckalsit First Nations project being categorized as a commercial building permit. So that's why that value is a bit higher in 2015 than some previous years that we have had. The overall building permit value did increase from about $11,200,000 in 2014 to about $13,500,000 in 2015. So, around $2.5 million increase in building permit value in 2015. Hopefully that continues in 2016. So into the department, the planning department does have some revenues that come into for the city. They are kind of 4 items. The planning fees and charges are essentially our development application fees, and there are some administrative fees when subdivision occurs. That's roughly around $15,000. It fluctuates, of course, depending on the number of applications. Our building permit fees, it's projected to be $70,000 for 2016. I have reduced that slightly from previous budgets in that because the last 2 years we've been closer to the $70,000 than the $80,000 that had been budgeted for. So I'm trying to be a bit more conservative there. If we get more, that's great. That shows us on the plus side, but I try to be conservative on our revenues from a budgeting point of view. And then we also receive a little bit of revenue from parking tickets and fines. and our vacant building registry. So those are essentially the revenues that come into the department. They're on a few different line items, mainly page 13 and 14 is where you'll see the revenues, and I've specified each line that they're on, but those are what is projected for 2016. This is the operating side of things, and I'll talk about the commissioners in a minute, but essentially the operating covers mostly the wages and benefits for the 4 staff that are in the department. It also covers some advertising costs for public hearing. Now those costs are offset by fees that we collect for applications. So it's kind of I have a line item for the revenue, but then there's an expenditure where we're required to advertise the public hearing in the newspaper. But so that's essentially revenue neutral, but there is a line item in here for the expense. It also covers membership requirements for staff, a small amount of backup for building inspection through the regional district, and backup for our bylaw enforcement when necessary. We have tried to keep those quite minimum and have actually reduced the amount we're budgeting for those. It also covers a work alone service for the bylaw enforcement and a small amount of supplies for the department. The commissionaires are also something that I oversee their contract. Their budget is $25,000. That is stable. It hasn't changed over the last several years. And essentially, they provide our parking ticket enforcement, mainly in our 2 downtown areas. And that amount covers essentially 6 hours per day, 5 days per week. So those are the operating side of the department. And that is what is in your current budget right now. There's 2 items that are on council's kind of optional list that I'm going to talk about with you now. They are not in the current budget. So these are only for council's consideration, whether you think they're good ideas or not. The first one would be a one-time cost, and it would be in order to assist in meeting council's strategic goal of creating a more inviting community and street beautification. A good portion of what people's feeling and inviting community and streetscape is the look of the buildings, the form and character of the buildings. Now, we do have development permit area guidelines for form and character in our commercial areas. They've been in place since 2007. So they haven't been reviewed in almost 10 years. The communities changed and may have different directions. What council could consider is it would heavily involve city council, the business community, and the general public about whether we want to look at those guidelines and whether we want to create more specific guidelines about certain architectural features we would like to see. Does the community have a vision about over the long term, because this happens when buildings are redeveloped or new construction occurs. But do we want to get more detailed about a vision that the community wants to see about our form and character of our buildings? And they could be different than, so right now, all our commercial form and characters are the same throughout the community. And that's okay, and it could stay that way, but also through a process, if the community envisions, well, we'd like to see a certain design character along Johnson Road, and we'd like to see a certain or somewhat different character in the uptown. That would be something that the council or that we could consider during this process, if we have different ideas for that. So again, this is just something for council's consideration. It is a project that could potentially work in association with a design charrette for Johnson Road that the economic development manager will talk about. These would be things that would be very compatible and would flow from you would do at the same time if you wanted to do both projects. And if you did both projects, there would likely be some money savings doing them together as to do them separately. The second item for council's consideration is, again, to meet council's strategic goal for an effective operations. And it would be to potentially add a new half-time clerical to assist in bylaw enforcement. The city did just receive the dedicated bylaw vehicle, and that will certainly help to increase the efficiencies for the bylaw officer. We did have 368 new bylaw files in 2015. So a significant number of bylaw files were opened in 2015. It's pretty similar to what we saw in 2014. And although certainly a second bylaw officer would improve the service, addition of clerical would be a step that would allow the current bylaw officer to be out in the city more often. That clerical position would take phone calls, set up the files in our computer system, and potentially prepare letters, all things that are keeping the current bylaw officer, those are necessary things that he has to do, but it keeps him in the office. So again, this is just an item for council's consideration about a potential way to improve, stepways to improve bylaw enforcement in the community. And and essentially that is my presentation, and I'd be very pleased to council answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Council questions? Councilor Minions?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if the GIS project from last year was completed.
And so essentially it was the water database project. It is just now finalizing up. So we did successfully hire a new GIS position, so he's been working very effectively with the consultant on that back and forth. So my understanding is it's just now reaching its completion.
Okay, Councilor Paulson?
This is a question you don't need to answer right now, Scott, but I've had some discussion with developers, local developers, and the discussion has been around the DCC costs. Mm-hmm. And maybe we could just get a little information moving forward, not necessarily today, but just kind of how we compare with other communities. And it seems to be a stickling point with some developers. So just so if we had more information on it, it would be great. So
certainly we can do that. Development cost charges are, we were late to the game on development cost charges. Most cities had them in place for a number of years, and so we're relatively late to that. So it was new for our local developers, but certainly we can put some information together about comparing what our DCC rates are to other communities.
That'd be great, because that way we've got some answers or some rebuttal.
Sure,
Thank
and
you.
we have different rates depending on what type of development
Sure.
it's doing. So, but yeah, we can look at a few other. If you prefer mainly island communities, if
so,
that's, but
that's
yeah,
good.
we can do that.
Sure, thanks, Scott.
Councilor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Johnson Road is a provincial highway,
Yes.
so from the sidewalk, the pavement belongs to the province, and from the sidewalk back belongs to the city.
Okay. Well, the city engineer would be better to advise this, but the sidewalk is still part of the provincial highway, but we're responsible for it.
Okay.
But it's still within the highway's right of way. So the
So
province still owns it, but the way they take responsibility for the pavement, we get to take care of the sidewalk, is my understanding.
So any beautification that we want to put, say, on the sidewalk or boulevard, there's no way the provincial government's going to help us out there.
I would say that they are not, they don't have a lot of money, just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not on the top of their priority for beautification for them to do. So again, the city engineer might be more open to answering that because he has more direct discussions with the Ministry of Transportation about this sort of thing. But I would have a very strong suspicion that the ministry is not going to bring money for streetscape beautification.
Thank you.
However, when it came to putting those advanced green lights up by the mall, Highways did arrange to have those installed at no cost to the city. So that was good for us.
Yeah, certainly traffic control is something that the ministry is directly involved in, absolutely.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I noticed, I think this top bulletin here means to get a consultant to help out with looking at, I just consultant to assistants and I got myself.
Yeah,
confused.
essentially what we would be looking to do is to get some
assistant.
architects and landscape consultants to help facilitate what the community might want to see.
That's probably not a bad idea if I may put with something else. Like when, a couple of years back, when several of the former council and myself went up and down Johnson Road and in the Northport area, they all had a good idea of what they wanted, but they aren't coming out to say so unless someone goes and asks, so.
Well, and sometimes what they would do is they do quick sketches and say, okay, this is what you're thinking, because most people are visual, right? And so, to say it in words and then they can put it down pictorial, that's kind of what a design charrette does. And that allows people to say, yes, that's what I mean. And then you can take that and put guidelines together to try and achieve those goals.
Okay. And the other comment on the second item you got up there, my understanding was that with this high-tech vehicle we finally got for the bylaw officer is that this onboard computer or some such thing was solving a lot of the filing problems. So I guess my personal opinion would be to wait and see how that works, because it was supposed to be a year's test. Well, the year just started the other day, so
Certainly
just my personal opinion, but that's all it is. And the other question I've got is I didn't see anything up here for SPCA. Are they not under your department? They do bylaw for animal control and stuff, so I just sort of thought
they're not.
it was a
really
natural joint, just I thought.
I mean, we work with them because of bylaw and the animal control bylaw that we have. They're not directly under they're a contract to the city. So they made their presentation and their budget request yesterday to.
But you don't manage that contract.
I do
because
not
it's
manage
bylaw.
that contract. No, we work together quite a
We'll
bit
find
with
out
our
who does.
bylaw officer, but I don't directly manage that contract, no.
Okay, I just thought it made it natural. Okay, when I didn't see it here, I was wondering.
Okay.
We can talk about that later.
Who does manage that contract?
Yeah, I guess we implement the contract and they pay them, but they manage themselves. Irene is the manager of the SPCA.
The budget line item actually comes under my department related to the building, and in there is also a contract. So I'll be putting the line forward tonight. It's in there. It's not part of Parks, Recreation, and Heritage, but it comes under our building oversight.
Okay, thank you.
That's good for now. Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Council? Public, any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for the budget decrease. You're a very easy department to work with, Mr. Smith. But now we have economic development, which is a different story altogether. Welcome, Mr. Deacon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. I'd like to also express appreciation to the members of the public that have come out to hear what we have to say, including Freeman of the City, Ken McCrae. And I would like to start with a thank you for your dedication to the budget reviews. Overnight, I slightly modified a few slides. I will point those out to you as we go. So, I make a point of acknowledging whose traditional territory we are in at the outset of every presentation. I will be coming back to the notion that everything is one and all is interconnected a bit later in my presentation. These are the initiatives assigned to me in your strategic plan, listed under the respective goals. I don't need to remind you what they are, so I will continue to move on. There are a few other initiatives I have responsibility for, either by way of council motion or my job description. The last item on that list, the Islands Agriculture Show, is a commitment I've made to the regional district for funding invested in the economic development function. Here's when I plan on addressing the initiatives by calendar quarter, and a brief note about most of them. I have highlighted 2 of these initiatives on this page. The first is a proposal for a charrette that city planner mentioned. I've lost track of the number of proposals for signage, the number of proposals for streetscape improvements, and ideas about a theme that should be carried through on Johnson Road. And a charrette is a great way of bringing the community together around it. What's involved in it is usually a 2 or 3 day process where you bring many people in the community together, and you do, as Scott suggested, have a quick sketch artist on hand. And as the group talks about issues, whether it be signage or wayfinding signage or streetscape improvements, the artist sketches. And you call a break about every 20 or 30 minutes, and the artist holds up a picture and says, "This is the impression I got from what people were saying." And then the group that is there gives the artist feedback saying, "Yes, you got it," or "No, what I had in mind was such and such." And you continue to work through the issues that we have. It can be an expensive process. Tofino spent $50,000 on their 2-day initiative to bring about a community center there. As Scott mentioned, we think that we could achieve some cost efficiencies if we were including form and character in there, but it would still represent a significant expenditure at this point in time. The second item that I'd like to draw attention to is the waterfront development. And I'm doing that in part to draw attention to the boardwalk proposal and request that was made by the Port Authority at the last public council meeting that was dedicated to business other than the budget. A few of us will be meeting with the Port Authority this Friday morning to try and understand the components of the request better and the cost items that were suggested, and we will bring that information back to council for your review. So this is the second page of my work plan, and again, suggesting which quarter I would be attacking the items that are involved in there. Here I indicate the proposed next step with respect to the 12 sectors of the economy that we're currently focused in, and again, economic sectors opportunity analysis is assigned to me under revitalizing the economy in council's strategic plan. So there are a number of next steps there that we go through. I want to thank council for the increased assistance approved in your last budget, and I thought it was appropriate to show how Stephanie's work time is being divided currently, and so that's out there under a % of time that are invested in a number of activities. So now to the budget request. Here I've listed the budget amounts that were approved in 2015. The year-end trial balance I have calculated in those areas, and I need to caution council about that. It is just that there is still information that is being entered in the accounting system, and so it is just an estimate at this point of what actually got spent in each of those areas. The revenue, which you find on page 13, line 56 in function 14560, is the contribution that the regional district makes to the economic development function. Last year, they ended up approving 28,833. I'm quite certain that they won't be contributing that amount this year, in large part because I haven't delivered on some of the items that we talked about at the regional district level.
Is this
If-
performance-based budgeting? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Assuming that the Alberni Valley directors will continue to contribute, I think what we'll actually realize is more like 19,000 in revenue. With respect to business development, that account is used to bring new revenue sources into being, originally put in place for the community forest. Once the community forest was up and running, we then turned to the district energy system. The district energy system become functional in 2015, we would have utilized all of the business development dollars. That is not the case. The economic development budget is under account largely because I was slow in moving from part-time to full-time assistant, implementing that. Oh, I need to go back that. So what I'm proposing this year is a reduction in the business development account and an increase in the marketing and advertising portion of the economic development account. The net result would be a 0.75% reduction in the tax requisition for those functions. Here's how the allocation for the economic development functions divides out. The consulting portion would amount to $25,000 and be used for assistance in establishing, for example, the next component of a high-value wood biomass cluster, or again, for example, a global center of excellence in forest firefighting. I am also proposing that some consulting assistance be contracted to explore the opportunities afforded by a municipal bond. I've done a fair bit of reading about these bonds. They're mostly adopted by larger cities, but I do think it's something that we could look into and pursue. Here's how the budget is proposed to play out for the 5-year financial plan. Essentially, it amounts to a 1% increase in each of the 4 years beyond 2016. I would like to propose that as a corporation and as a community, we adopt a goal of having 20,000 people living in the community in 10 years' time. I chose 20,000 for the goal because that was the high point in the city's population back in 1971, and because statistics show our population has declined ever since. Based on anecdotal evidence, we do believe our population has been increasing over the last couple of years, but we are diving deeper into the numbers to figure out what is really going on. And regardless of what is going on, I think 20,000 is an appropriate, responsible, and achievable goal, and a challenge at the same time, as it would average out, given where we are now, to 20,000 to about 330 people a year. Achieving the goal, just one further comment about the estimates, BC Stats estimates. They're based on a statistical model that incorporates birth and death rates, changes in the number of residential electrical meters, and changes in the number of clients in the BC Health Client Registry. Achieving another reason for adopting that population goal is that Stats Canada believes the only true measure of a growing economy is a growing population. Achieving the goal, or even progressing towards it, will achieve the results that are identified here. In my view, the goal will require these 4 elements at least. I intend to speak briefly about each of them, and starting with everything is one and all is interconnected. Social issues and our response or lack of response to them, the look of the community, our attitude about local government and small business and things in the community, the way we talk about it, the online banter, the weather, our industries or lack of some sectors, all of these impact our ability to attract good media, businesses, investment, new residents, new visitors, and more. I trust I am preaching to the converted when I say this, and I believe it is important for each of us to remind others if we see or hear someone going off the rails. Now, I need to acknowledge that some of these things are not in our jurisdiction nor in our mandate, and some are beyond our control completely, and some we don't have resources for. But we do need to be aware of the interconnectedness of these and other things and respond appropriately. And I'll come back to that later. I am a happy resident of Port Alberni. I love living here. And here are some of the boxes I would look to check off when verbalizing my pride in our community. I talk to people about the benefits of living here constantly, and there are many good things I have to say, and I think we could take promotion to a whole new level if we were all indeed proud of Port Alberni. We all know there's lots of work to be done here. I've listed a number of negative notions that I hear constantly about the community, and some of the counterpoints we could use in responding to those impressions. I told council I would point out when I've changed a slide, so I did add under the negative, the very last one in the right-hand column, over the hump, because I hear that constantly. It's, you know, you guys are difficult to get to for a short visit. So, and there are positive notions about us that I hear constantly. And overnight I did add 2 to that list as well. Modern hospital with an atrium and a new high school. Image improvements are accomplished by a number of things. This is a partial list of things we are doing and things that we could be doing more of to improve our image. So moving on to appealing to target markets, I've broken out who I think our target markets are or should be into 4 components. 3 of them are on this page, including those who already live here. And I've listed under this slide the attributes that I believe people in these areas are looking for. And it's not just I believe, it's based on a lot of research as well. So I have included immigrants in that area. For a long time, there has been the notion that we should be doing more with the existing population that we have, and I agree that we should. I also believe that given the gap that I'd like to see us make up in population, that we should be looking to another sector of the economy or another opportunity, and that is immigrants. The fourth target market is millennials. I shared some generalities with them in an August report to council about the rebranding work, so I won't belabor that. Market research suggests some tactics and strategies for appealing to millennials, and these are listed here. I am proposing a significant investment in blogs, video blogs. That's the reference to vlogs, professional photos, and other content for social media in the marketing budget. I did also add overnight, I had originally listed livability under, so I believe that some of the foundation for appealing to millennials is also the tech sector and the creative industries jobs. And I had livability, but I spent quite a bit of time reading about that, and I've changed it up to opportunities to play. So I did mention that I would come back to everything as one, and it's all interconnected. I'm also recommending that we as a community, as a corporation, choose an issue that we need to address or should address and form a task force. I have provided I've listed several areas of concern. I've identified some criteria that we could use in deciding which to go on. And one of the things that this is another way of generating pride in the community, attracting positive publicity, catching the attention of prospective new residents, and that is to choose one of those. When Paul O'Neill became the new CEO of Alcoa, the aluminum company of America, back in 1987, he decided to focus on worker safety. In his first media conference, he spoke about that and only that. When someone asked him about the company's capital ratios, he said, "I'm not sure you heard me. If you want to know how Alcoa is doing, you need to look at our workplace safety figures. Profits," he said, "don't matter as much as safety." So the story goes on to say that one of the investors in the room ran out of the room, phoned his top 20 clients and said, "Sell your stock in Alcoa. They've got a hippie in charge of the organization now." However, Alcoa went on to post a record profit in the following year, and over the next 13 years, the shareholders received as much in their original investment of their shares in the benefits in dividends, sorry. And if they were to have sold their stock at the time that Mr. O'Neill left to become head of the Treasury Board in the U.S., their stock would have been worth 5 times what it was when he started. So I'm using this as an example. We know from companies and organizations that are trying to recruit people, executives into the community, there is a concern about crime. There is a concern about health and safety. And so I do believe it would be very useful and valuable to choose one of those. We could also focus on an area where we are already doing well and want to improve. With respect to livability, I came across this comment in the International Making Cities Livable website. The question that spurred the International Making Cities Livable quest was, how do children become fully human, caring, and responsible adults committed to the welfare of others, whether families or strangers? How do some children grow up capable of experiencing beauty, joy, and laughter, and other children become adults capable of aggression and brutality without joy or interest in their fellow human beings? And what are the circumstances, the kinds of social, familial, and physical environments that produce one or the other human being? Interesting focus. So another note to council, I reversed the last 2 slides in the deck. So this was the last, I've moved it forward. I encourage council to literally map out the plan so that a person who is more visually inclined can see what is intended and what is getting achieved and see the progress to date. Here I am suggesting these 3 things be mapped out, but there could be others or there could be layers. And so I've suggested economic sectors, infrastructure and curb appeal, and again, I had livability, but I changed it to more opportunities to play. And those are just some ideas. You want to put Port Alberni on the map? Let's put a zip line across the Alberni Inlet from Copper Mountain to the other side. Now, that I'd love to do it. Actually, I've done the Whistler zip line, so yeah, I'm up for it. I think more realistically, and something that's more affordable at this point in time would be to focus on a hand car or pump car along the tracks. And Helmut Swinkels was the one that's brought this to my attention. There's a community in Holland that is doing this and has really upped the number of visitors to the community and the interest in the community as a result of that. And it's just 2 people get on a hand car and they race one another, kind of thing. So then the last side, and that would be with council's permission, I would propose to add these to my work plan. The attraction of new residents and improved community image is implicit in the assignments to me, but it's not explicit, and I think it would help us all to make it explicit. And I would also offer to be involved in a task force on a chosen issue and the more opportunities to play initiative. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Good. There were some of the abbreviations that you were using.
Sure.
Could we just go back to those? It's one of the early slides. keep going, I think. Keep going. There. What's IRRFS?
That's a resource recovery feasibility study.
Okay.
We did one in 2010, and that's what led to what happened at that point was we looked at everywhere in the community we thought we might be wasting energy. And as a result of the review, the district energy project was selected as the most feasible to move forward with.
Okay.
And so DES is, of course, the district energy commercial revitalization tax exemption bylaw in progress here. And I do say there's no action contemplated on that resource recovery feasibility study at the moment. Council, of course, is free to say to me, no, it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, time to do another, and we will. Technologies have changed, opportunities have changed. So when we did the first one, we looked at what was going into the landfill. At that time, we had a fish plant operating, so we looked at fish biomass. We did look at heat from the sewer system, and there were a couple of other opportunities that we looked at.
Thank you.
And then clarify external marketing, AVT is Alberni Valley Tourism. And under the Economic Sectors Initiative, CLT is cross-laminated timber. And under tourism, VES is the visitor experience survey that was completed last year.
Okay, Council? Councillor Soe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question I had about the proposal for the boardwalk. You aware that's a time-sensitive issue, or?
Acutely aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be one of your priorities to start working on that?
That's why we're meeting with the Port Authority at 7:30 on Friday morning.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor McClement?
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm glad I'm not the only guy that asked for initials to be explained. I always thought it was only British that did that, but it seems like everybody is since Weyerhaeuser was in town. One thing you mentioned early was Sprout.
Yep.
And then you said needs a motion from council.
No, sorry. If I did say
Oh, okay.
Sprout.
Oh, it's in progress, okay.
Yeah, it is in
Higher
progress.
up one I
Yeah.
just looked at, okay, so it's going and,
Yeah.
I thought we voted on it and said, let's go and look.
Yeah, it's a council motion.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Directing
what
me to.
Council motion was in the past, okay.
Yeah.
Fair,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, and I like your attracting new residents, your last slide. Partner with realtors and work with millennials. Nice, you're calling me a millennial now, I'm feeling very good about that. But,
May I comment about partnering with realtors?
that's what I'd like to hear. I think that's a really good idea, and I understand we have a realtor on a business council or something that the mayor is chairing in town, and maybe we could get him or her, it's a him, I think, to assist in producing some examples of what is available here for both business and residents.
3 years ago, I sent an email to every realtor in the community, and I offered to match the advertising budget up to $1,000 for the target markets that they were selecting. And it was under the impression that they know where people are coming from, why they're coming, all those good kinds of things. Not one single realtor took me up on it. I did go and meet with each of the realty houses and explained what it was that I was doing. I did see a few weeks ago a comment in a blog or on a website, Alberni Thrive, that one of the realtors in the community is saying we should either hand over the marketing to the professionals that know to do it, how to do it, or we should work with them. I agree. So I will be going back to the realtors.
Only took them 3 years to figure it out. Eh? I think that's a good thing. That's all. And the other thing, I guess I'm maybe jumping ahead here a bit, but you work with the chamber quite a bit, and I think that's good. And I was just wondering, we have a contract with the chamber. I was wondering if that should be tied in a little bit with economic development more officially, but we can talk about that as we get to what we want to do. So, okay, I think that's all for now. I'll have more questions maybe this afternoon, so don't go far.
Okay.
Councillor Minions?
Thank you. I'm just wondering what your feelings are about the Chamber's proposal to attend trade shows, and if you think that would be beneficial to the community or not.
I do. The economic development budget has supported 2 chamber initiatives. One was the recent one to the Victoria Marathon, and when Bill mentioned the Abbotsford show as well, we provided both some money towards the project and a volunteer. We did also do a trade show in Edmonton, and that didn't produce the results that I was looking for. I think it may have had to do more with the individuals that were at the show on our behalf. They had reasons why they thought it didn't go over so well, but I do think that there is value in trade shows. I know Alberni Valley Tourism will say no. They don't. They have a completely different opinion of them. But I do think it would be worth exploring a couple.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
Just an observation, Pat. I don't see any referral to internal marketing within our own community. And what I've found is people who are born and raised here have a different and sometimes not positive view of their own community. And I'm a person from outside the community, coming from Edmonton, and certainly see the community in a different light than some of the people who were born and raised here. And I'm just going back to the All Candidates meeting at the high school, some of the comments from some of the students, and it is a perception. I think we need to change that perception from within our own minds and hearts, and that would be internal marketing and education. We've had a couple meetings with our youth advisory committee, and at times there are comments made from them on the negative side, but also comments that we make that they say, well, I didn't know we had that within our community. I didn't know we had that service. So sometimes that change has to come from within as well. So just a suggestion. I don't know how you would formalize that, but sometimes your population are your best salespeople too, word of mouth. Just a comment.
I hear you. I was shocked at the BC Economic Development Association conference last year to hear that the vast majority of my counterparts spend more money advertising in their communities than they do out. I was floored, but I get it. I get it. I mean, there's 16,600 people in the community who are also all potential advocates, marketers, spokespeople, ambassadors, and we need to do that.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I perused the Business Examiner last night, and I noticed there's quite a substantial ad in there for the Clutha request for proposal. Is that on out of your budget, or is that out of the Board Authority's budget?
No, that is out of my budget.
Okay, thank you.
If I may use this opportunity, you may have noticed that there are several businesses that have been shortlisted for the Vancouver Island Business Excellence Awards. Many of them were nominated by my office. Some were nominated by the Chamber. It was a much bigger list, but I'm thrilled that I think there's about 8 of them that have made the short list.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, just briefly, I'd just like to go on record saying I support trade shows. I think if done right, they're good. And you have to have people there that are going to not talk to just one person for 20 minutes. Got to be a catch. Everybody comes to the table. And I've been at quite a few and with other people, and it just works well. The other question I do have, and you probably don't know the answer, and that's okay. Someone can come back later. The concept of the walkway to what those of us who worked at SOMAS called the dike down the side there, that the Port Authority has been talking about. We keep hearing about the emergency of the time. Is that something that the carbon tax or the gas tax could pay into, and we could revise some of that and maybe take a longer time to do it if it's a good thing we want? And I think it's a good thing, although I'm not too sure that's the exact location for it, but I'm willing to listen. So just a thought.
We do intend to ask that question of the Port Authority on Friday morning. There is, I mean, we totally get the urgency of the matter because ICE-T funding is finished in May, end of story, no more opportunity. But there has been, a question of whether or not, if it was delayed, might we find some other funding sources for it or move forward. But we will come back to council after our meeting Friday morning, and we will have some better answers.
So it'll be next Monday's meeting.
Right.
Pat, do you believe that your advertising budget at this point is sufficient to meet your needs?
I think every EDO would say no, and I'm acutely aware of the pressures on the community, and I'm also acutely aware that particularly when we move into the Millennials, they have way more trust for third-party endorsements and blogs, videos that have been shot by others in the community than they do print ads and that kind of thing. So I'm confident that with the money that we have, we can certainly develop a lot of content. I am going to be spending the first chunk of money this year is actually going into Seniors Magazine and Show. We're using an opportunity. It turns out that the editor of Seniors Living is a former Port Alberni resident, and she's working with us to get a big bang for our buck, and we are going into a trade show that they sponsor. But I really do see, and some will go into matching dollars with realtors, some goes into matching with Alberni Valley Tourism, and some will go into the content development.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Council? The public, any questions for our Economic Development Manager?
If I could ask one there, Pat. You've mentioned Millennials numerous times. What specifically are you doing to interact with them?
Okay. Can I just get, sorry, Malcolm.
This is all on live stream if you need your mic.
Oh, okay.
Just the world can see you. And Councillor Alamani is watching, we know that.
So do I look at you here? Or do I have to look at you to ask him a question?
No, look this way and then the cameras will pick you up.
Okay. Pat, what specifically, you've mentioned millennials numerous times. What specifically are you focusing on to attract them here?
So, again, I would come back to this. We aren't doing this now beyond Heart of Vancouver Island. And Heart of Vancouver Island focuses on scenery more than activity. And so the intent of investing in blogs and videos is to show people doing things in the community. And I've also acknowledged that under that marketing, I mean, we haven't really turned to them yet. I mean, we identified it as the target market as we were moving into the rebranding process, and I did that out of concern about the demographics and the number of young people that we are losing from the community and who are not returning until much later in life. So it would be work with the people that are in the community already, that are millennials. Who are your groups? What do we need to know? I mean, it really is around social media. A perfect example is yesterday, some of you will have seen that Alicia LaRue posted that she was entering the number 7 challenge. And she tagged a whole number of people in that post. And there have been several dozen responses to that. There were several dozen within a couple of hours, and there have been additional ones. And so it is turning to people that are in the community already, that are in that demographic. What do we need to learn from you? How can you help us? I mean, really, when I talk about everything as one and all is interconnected, last year I finished my presentation with a slide that asked all hands to be on deck. And I haven't pushed that because I recognize that there's I guess an impression that you're in a crisis situation. So I'm looking for another way of framing it, and I think it is we all need to work together. It takes a community. You know the expression, it takes a community to raise a child. I think it takes a community to attract a new resident.
Okay. Yes. Please come to the mic.
Hi, everybody. Cheryl McLean. I came to just sit and listen, but since you asked us to be able to give an opportunity, I had some questions. Born and raised in Port Alberni, I'm one of those people, have a heart for the community, people that know me, and a few concerns, well, and I do agree with some things Pat had to say, but to do with marketing, thorn in my side. No, nothing on the ferry that I see about Port Alberni. So I would like to see a magazine, something, marketing that. Everybody else seems to be there on the island, but we're missed. To me, that is a big something that could help with our community. The other idea I really like is the waterfront development. I would like to see some color changes down at the Harbor Quay to upgrade it. Someone said it looks like a bachelor pad, you know, when you kind of leave things, don't do anything for a while. So that would be on my list. Another one would be bringing unity in the community. Born and raised here, Northport, Southport, everybody knows that whole story. But I have heard about, and I did like what Pat had to say about on 3rd Avenue, bringing some beauty along there. I think that would be, and Love the idea, and I don't know where that's gone, with one name, naming it, you know, because I have friends that come here, I bring people here, they get lost, if you can believe that, trying to give direction. So I think that's important. One other quick thing is the forming a task force. I would like to get to the root of why we need to do that. Cleaning up and working with people with the poverty that we have in this community and working with those people, so we don't need to have a task force, but we deal with it, you know, at the ground roots is what I would like to see. And I think those were my main things I wanted to share with. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Alberni Valley Tourism does have a publication on the ferries, and in fact, it is one of the publications that gets taken most frequently. I have seen emails from BC, or from the agency that stocks BC ferries, to Alberni Valley Tourism saying, we need more. This is one of the most popular items. So obviously, we could always do more, but there is some on the ferry, and part of my budget allocation to Alberni Valley Tourism does specifically mention this is for or to match your investment with the agency that stocks the ferries and the airports. And again, one of the items that's on the work plan is to clarify the external marketing role. The Chamber wants to do some, I'm doing some, Alberni Valley Tourism is doing some, and individual businesses are doing some.
Okay. Councillor Sobey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could vouch for the fairs that they are on them, because that's the first thing I do when I go on the fairs and look to see how many there's left. I wanted to ask you a question about Alberni Thrive. Is that any way sponsored by the city?
No.
Because to me, I've been following that now for the past several months, and when it started, it's a pretty amazing site that they have, and the way they populate the website with what Port Alberni has to offer, and mentioning Mrs. DeLaRue with the kiteboarding, focusing on certain age groups and all that is just to me is very essential. But I just wanted to send out for Alberni Thrive how much of a great job they're doing for the community. And I enjoy looking almost every week for new adventures that they're mentioning. And if there's any way that I feel that you're able to work with them and assist, it would be a great asset to our community.
We did, at their request, try and identify a source of funding that would enable some of the contributors to focus more fully on that. And you know, people are expressing their opinion. I'm not a big fan of the clenched fist logo, but everybody has a different take on things. I do read the articles.
Okay, Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick question. A couple of years ago, I was at the Comox Airport, and there was actually a really spectacular video clip of the Alberni Valley and Port Alberni. Do we still do that in the airports, or no?
I'd have to check with Alberni Valley Tourism. My contract with them is just that they will have material in the airports, and so I'm not certain whether it's hard copy material or videos, but I will check.
It was really nice. It was high def, and it was an eye catcher. So, just a thought.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClement.
Well, while we're worrying about advertising, I guess there's another couple of ferries that come to the island, and one, the Coho to Port Angeles and the Victoria Clipper, and I've had opportunity to be on both of them the last while, and there's nice publications they have, and they got a lot of Vancouver Island communities, but it seems like Tourism Vancouver Island leaves Port Alberni out of those ones. So-
we do have something on the coho.
We got it now?
Have had for over a year. So I
I didn't see it when I was there, but
Yeah.
if it's there, great.
yeah.
And I think there's a bunch of tourists that got extra money now or dollars and worth too much.
We have been having discussions with Tourism Vancouver Island about our contributions.
Okay, anything else for economic development? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pat? Council, any directions or requests for information for subsequent meetings? Nope. Okay, thank you. Then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. And thank you, everybody, for being here today.